So mine is about 250 square feet.
Nearly 34 million square feet of U.S. mall space is vacant and off the market.
People trying to unlock my door thinking that this is an Airbnb apartment.
All right, so to piggyback off of some of the videos that I've made recently talking about the housing crisis globally, another video that I made, people living in long-term hotels and motels because it was still cheaper than renting an apartment or a house. Today we're going to be checking out a video showing how shopping malls are being transformed into apartments in the US. So something I could see being more common in the next few years, especially with the ways that malls and brick and mortar stores are going. So let's just jump right into it.
So welcome to the teeny tiny shoebox apartment inside the arcade. There are lots of others in the building just like this. So mine is about 250 square feet. There's a walkway right in front of the facade because this used to be a shop front. And so people had to access all of the shops in the building.
While malls across the U.S. are facing store closures and empty parking lots, some are finding a new life from an unlikely source. We are here at the Arcade Mall in Providence, Rhode Island, the oldest indoor shopping mall in the country. The arcade had long been a center point in Providence's bustling downtown, but like other malls, it fell on hard times and was completely vacant. But rather than letting this historic building fall into ruin, developers came in and decided to build 48 micro lofts here on the second floor and up here on the third floor.
Okay, so before we get into the rest of the video, I just had to look it up immediately because I wanted to know how much they cost. So online right now, it says the price of apartments of former shopping mall like the Arcade Providence is anywhere from $800 to $1,800. It's because the apartments range from 225 to 775 square feet. So I think the person they interviewed said that it was around 250 feet. So I'm guessing it's around $800 a month, which, I mean, I don't really know how to compare it because it is the Northeast, it is New England. I'm from New Jersey. I know how expensive that whole area is. So $800 isn't really that bad, even though it is just a small 250 square foot apartment. But I mean, if you are single, I think it would still be a pretty good way to save money up in the Northeast just because of how expensive everything is. Apartments are priced anywhere from $800 to $1,800 a month. So I'm guessing the $775 is almost $2,000 a month. And that, again, the prices are skewed because it's in New England, but you could definitely find better deals all across the country. Comparing to that, one bedroom apartment in an historic arcade is available for $1,425 a month. Apartment is fully furnished, including a kitchenette, TV, and built-in beds. So I mean, it's a little iffy.
While top-tier malls continue to be in high demand, nearly 34 million square feet of U.S. mall space is vacant and off the market. Almost 70% of Americans live within an hour of a mall that has a high vacancy rate, low consumer traffic, or is abandoned altogether. At the same time, the country is facing a massive housing deficit of 4.5 million homes.
There's a housing problem in a lot of markets across the U.S., right? This is an opportunity to find land and have a built-in customer base to get people into the mall.
Monday through Friday, this is really busy down here. It's definitely, people in the offices working, getting lunch or whatever, and my barber's downstairs.
As of January 2022, at least 192 U.S. malls plan to add a housing component.
Now that definitely makes sense to me because the malls are doing pretty bad right now. But there were two things that I wanted to say about this part of the clip. They made it sound like at the beginning of the video that the arcade mall was completely vacant. And that's why they put, I think it was like 48 apartments in there. And now it doesn't seem like it at all. The first floor had a whole bunch of stores. So I don't know. Seems like the mall's doing pretty fine now. They just added apartments. The second thing about the housing shortage, I mean, we saw all across the US, even all across the world as well. But most people can't afford the brand new homes being built. So that plays a part in the housing shortage. Honestly, nothing but expensive paper houses are being built with ridiculous prices. So even if magically overnight 4 million houses were built, it wouldn't just immediately solve the housing market crisis because people really can't afford the brand new $430,000 house on average that's being built with the worst construction possible.
The U.S. has about 1,100 regional and super regional malls, about 8.5% lower than 2015. So, can new housing developments help revive the classic American mall? And what's it like to live inside one? CNBC went to Providence, Rhode Island to find out. Amy Hinion has been living on the top floor of a 3-story mall in Providence, Rhode Island for the past 2.5 years. What's it like to live at the mall?
It's really great. It's cool to be part of such a historic building and knowing that every single one of these units used to be a shop of some kind.
But living in a converted store does present some challenges.
Here is my very tiny kitchen. It is very small, but it is workable. And one of the interesting things about the units in the building is that because of codes, you can't have any cooking devices with an open flame. So none of the units have stoves or ranges.
All right, so to me, that's a little bit of a problem. However, we've seen in the videos talking about the people in long-term hotels, motels, them buying griddles and crock pots and still being able to cook in their homes. Now, I don't know if that's technically allowed. I mean, there isn't any open flames, but griddles use propane. I don't know what the ruling is with that, but it is definitely an issue if you're not really allowed to cook at all, even with food places being directly under because it's still a running mall. Of course, that could get really expensive along with it not being healthy, but I mean, there are workarounds if you are able to use griddles and crock pots we've seen in videos previously.
Do you ever have any concerns about privacy?
Not really. It's something you get used to living in the building, having people coming and going. Everybody has blinds in their apartment that they can raise or lower as they like.
Despite those challenges, residents say having access to shops and restaurants makes living at the arcade a unique experience.
I get my hair cut in the salon downstairs, and there's little lunch spots, so you don't even have to leave the building. There's a bookstore downstairs, and they'll do author talks in the private lounge area.
Avoiding New England's sometimes stormy weather is, of course, another perk.
If it's like pouring rain outside or if it's snowy, you just really can't be bothered to go out in the weather, you can still go downstairs and take advantage of those amenities.
And it's not just long-term renters that are attracted to the mall. Scott Sheehan is a real estate investor and rents out his apartment on Airbnb. Some of these business owners that are down on the first floor, how important is it to them to kind of have a built-in customer base with these residents on the second and third floor?
I know a lot of folks are very loyal to, many of the bars, restaurants, clothing stores downstairs. So, the business folks downstairs definitely are interested in maintaining that relationship with the residents.
So to me, it definitely does seem like it has its perks. I mean, if I was in the area for whatever reason, I think it'd be cool to rent it out, Airbnb for a couple nights. I think it'd be fun. Now, of course, if you actually live there long term, like the first person they're interviewing, you can't really have a family in that sort of space, like the 250, even like the 700 square feet might start getting a little bit tough. But I mean, maybe if it's just yourself or you and a partner, it might be good for at least, a few years to be able to save up money, at least in comparison to the rent prices and housing prices in New England.
You definitely feel like you're part of the community more so than if you were just in a standard apartment building. It has been interesting with people trying to unlock my door thinking that this is an Airbnb apartment. So
I wouldn't like that.
Sometimes you have to deal with the public more than you would in a regular home. But for me, that's a small compromise.
I'm not so good with that one.
When a mall dies, communities lose more than just a shopping destination. Malls often serve as economic hubs, generating billions in tax revenue and creating thousands of jobs. In 2020, U.S. malls and shopping centers contributed $400 billion in tax revenue. When malls close, it triggers an economic domino effect. Local businesses suffer, jobs are lost, and vacant spaces become eyesores. To combat this, developers are transforming dead malls into mixed-use spaces, offices, medical facilities, and housing. Of these conversions, nearly 54% are being used for residences and office space.
Now, I don't think it's the sole reason because malls start to close that every store around it starts collapsing as well. It's honestly just a sign of the times and people just shop online more. I mean, some brick and mortar stores are just becoming obsolete. And of course, it would help small businesses if they were near, a giant popular mall. They'd have some trickling in customers who are just going to be there already. But they also have to adapt on how consumers spend their money in today's world.
Once upon a time, retailers like Macy's and JCPenney were the anchors of America's malls. But department stores are shrinking. Macy's plans to close 150 of its namesake stores by 2027. JCPenney, which has already closed hundreds of stores since declaring bankruptcy, is closing 4 more between this year and next, despite a $1 billion turnaround investment plan.
When you have dead retail space, it can be easier to clear that. Most of what a retail site is parking lot. So you don't have to demo much to demo a parking lot, and the buildings themselves are generally easier to demo and then adapt into a retail space.
Gonna see that a lot, honestly.
The Arcade is a little bit different than some of the other mall-based residential projects out there. Most of them, like the one at Flatiron Crossing in Broomfield, Colorado, are adjacent to the mall and connected by green spaces or walkways.
This was a vacant parking lot, underutilized parking here at the mall, and we, decided to go as a mixed-use project here.
All of the benefits that the shopping center itself bring to the equation, you have a highly amenitized residential project that's much more desirable than something that might just be, in an isolated location.
Not only does it meet housing needs, but it also revitalizes the property by bringing in a new customer base that can boost on-site restaurants, gyms, and entertainment venues.
Okay, so they're using a lot of this B-roll of the shot of this mall. Now, I don't think that this is the Arcade Mall. I guess this is the Colorado one they just started talking about. But honestly, that mall looks really nice. I mean, I just saw a North Face store when they were walking around. Looks super fancy, nicer than any mall that I've ever been to. So if they're starting to do all of the apartments and renovations to try to have more mixed use and actually use the land and stores, that does not bode well for malls in general. We'll probably be seeing this all over the country then, in apartment buildings and all of that being built around the vacant malls and giant parking lots.
While housing in malls sounds promising, it's not without its challenges. Zoning laws can be a major hurdle. Malls are typically zoned for commercial or mixed use, not multifamily residential. Developers often need approval from local jurisdictions to move forward.
Like any other developer, are having to navigate things like interest rates, construction costs, the capital markets, and so on.
Another obstacle is design. Most malls have limited windows, which are essential for residential spaces because they need natural light, making it difficult to convert certain parts of the mall. Usually, only the exterior-facing retail spaces are suitable for housing. Converting commercial office space into apartments is another trend, but it's often very expensive. A study found that in 5 U.S. metro areas hit hardest by remote work, the estimated office acquisition price would need to drop by 50% for the conversion to be financially feasible.
So these office buildings are so expensive and also becoming obsolete in some cases, with remote jobs becoming more popular, that the owners are going to let it rot and just be vacant instead of selling it to another company and beginning to build mixed uses or the apartment spaces that will actually be used.
Conversion projects are really tricky because, a lot depends upon existing conditions, which you might not always know about. But to give you a range, on a very low end, you'd be looking at maybe $200 a square foot to convert, where on the upper end, you might be looking more at like $800 or more per square foot to convert.
Despite those headwinds, malls across America just might have a second chance if they can truly become the housing hubs of the future.
The mall's becoming cool again. And so being able to live
I
by
don't
it,
know
work
about that.
by it, play by it, go to restaurants by it, we're definitely seeing this as a trend.
Some people are confused and they'll say, why would you want to live in a space that small? But for me, it's about having a reasonable apartment at a reasonable price that will force me out into the community and interacting with the people outside. The point is not to stay in the 250 square foot studio, it's to interact with the downtown that you're living in.
Okay. So I do think that's a good reason, along with possibly saving money like we saw with the $800 a month. Most people are not that social in today's world, and being forced out in the public instead of being cooped up in a small apartment can help you. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I'm just like that. The most speaking that I do on a day-to-day basis is to you guys through the camera. So honestly, it would probably help me be more social as well. But the cost at $200 to $800 per square foot can turn these affordable small apartments into yet more luxury areas where only rich people would be able to afford it. But now we could go over to the comments from this video. The first one pinned by CNBC. If you want to watch another story about living in a mall, check out this episode. I live above a mall in Miami for $41.50 a month. So there goes the affordability in these small apartments. It just turns into another thing that the upper class could rent. They could be above probably a really nice, expensive mall in Miami and just be able to spend even more. So the affordability right out the window. This is the answer for senior citizens who no longer drive. You have access to retail shops, do not need to use expensive rideshare services. In regards to their apartment being small, many people want this as seniors. Living in a smaller space is a lot easier to maintain. I would honestly do that. Say if I was forced into like the senior living kind of compounds that you could see, the giant communities. I mean, I think it'd be cooler to live in an area like we've seen in this video instead. This is bringing the concept of a village back. The funny thing is that this was the original vision of the architect who invented malls. He wanted them all to be their own mini communities where you could live, work, and shop. Took 100 years, but we finally made it here. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. It does seem like it would probably help the small economy that would be in the mall because, like they said, they had the small shops, the bookshop, the haircut, barber. You wouldn't even have to actually go outside if the weather was bad like it is in New England during the winter. This is a smart idea as long as it's affordable. As a Providence native, this is cool, and I don't know too much about the renting and housing prices. I'm just making a general statement that the Northeast is just way too expensive for me. I lived in New Jersey for 25 years, 26 years, and there's a reason why I live in North Carolina right now. I did not want to spend all that money for a house or an apartment, anything. They're finally doing it. People have been suggesting this for years, and they said in the beginning of the video, she's been living there for 2.5 years. So this isn't something that has just come out, but another example, going back up to New Jersey, a couple of the malls around where I used to live, there are many stores. There are entire wings that are completely closed off. The Woodbridge Mall in New Jersey is not looking good right now. So we could start seeing this become more and more common, at least with my experiences. Another one, as a disabled person who can't drive, I'd love this. So I mean, along with how much traction this video got, there's 6 million views in just a couple days. It seems like this is actually a pretty popular topic for many people. Now, hopefully, if it could be relatively affordable, that could help a lot more people and be even more popular, especially in today's world. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's all I got for you guys today. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.